Hello, lovely people. This is going to be a part 2 in series of microarray, and today we're going to learn how to calibrate uncalibrated microphones. So if you haven't watched a few videos before, I was talking about the mic array. I'm going to be using a microphone array, and I did bought some microphones. So I bought 6 of the Behringers ECM 8000s, and these microphones are not calibrated, so they do not have a calibration file. For general purpose, it's kind of okay, and I won't be aiming for the absolute perfection or whatever. For me, good enough result is going to be good enough. That's why I will be using these, nothing really special. So in order to calibrate a microphone, you need to have a reference. For me, my reference is gonna be my old trusty UMIC 1. So this UMIC has a calibration file. So I know that it does measure okay. It's not on the level of like whatever, like thousands of dollars of microphone, but it's perfectly fine enough. And the only thing that I need to make sure that all of these microphones measure kind of the same. Again, I'm not aiming for perfection, but it's going to be fine. So to make a calibration file, I will be using REW. What I need to do is I need to take measurements of a reference microphone, and then I need to compare it to all the other ones. So I will be using loads of measurements and loads of sweeps. Now, a little bit of a setup. So you see the top speaker, because I don't have a stand that can you adjust the height and everything. So the only thing that I need to make sure that the sound that's coming from the speaker into the microphone is the first one. Because what you have side reflections from the side, so I have side walls are far away. The down, which is the floor, and the ceiling is right in the middle. The second speaker is right in the middle between the floor and the ceiling. So it's 4 feet from the ceiling and 4 feet from the floor, which is right in the middle, so a meter, 120 centimeters. And then I need to make sure that the distance to the microphone is shorter than that, because if the distance is going to be longer, then I will be receiving reflections mixed with the direct sound. So it's called a gated measurement, because you can, in REW, I'm going to show you, you can gate a measurement and just tell it, okay, I want to receive only this like distance to the speaker. So I have 4 feet to the closest reflective surface, and I have 3 feet, which is 1 meter, like 90 centimeters, to the microphone. I have the heights exactly the same, it's positioned there. So these are very old speakers. They are, if you can see, it has a wizard cone. They're extremely, it's like from the 70s, literally from the 70s. I did restore them a while ago, and it's an 8-inch full range driver. It plays as high as I need to, and I will be measuring from about 200 hertz all the way up. So let me quickly demonstrate. I'm not gonna jump in the laptop, out the laptop. I'm gonna film everything like this with a camera. It's just easier. So I have the Focusrite, which I have here. The signal goes into the amplifier and into that speaker. So I have the Focusrite there. I have my UMIC as an input. Then I need to check, the only thing is calibration file 90 degree, because I will be using in the microphone array, I will be using 90 degree like microphones pointing up. So I need to calibrate not 0 degree, but 90 degree. And this has a 90 degree calibration file. So I have that calibration file loaded into the microphone that I'm going to be using, which is perfect. Actually, it's this one. So I just need to find it. UMIC 90. There we go. So this one is loaded, perfectly fine. Then let's do one sweep. So for this, I'm not going to be using RTA, because in cars, we use RTA and do spatial averaging. But for this, I'm going to be using sweeps. So if you go to measure tab, minus 3 dB FS is fine. I'm going to measure from 200 hertz. Actually, let's measure from 50. I'm going to explain you, actually 80. I'm going to explain to you why later I'm going to measure from 200. Let's check the levels. Okay, perfect. For this test, I'm going to be doing very quick, just 1.4 seconds, very quick sweep, just as a test. Cool, that's enough. So this is the test. And here you can see we have all of these blah, 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 blah. So these are the actual reflections from everywhere that's coming in the room. If I would want to do this like perfectly, I would need to go outside, like raise the speaker as I did with on axis off axis measurements. So I went outside, so but it's so cold outside, I cannot. Yeah, the Christmas tree is there, tell it to my wife, not to me. It's very cold outside, that's why I don't want to go there, and I'm gonna do this in the room. So if you go to impulse, so I'm going to select this measurement and I'm going to go to impulse. And impulse, this is the actual time of the measurement, how long is gonna, so by default it's very long and you can shorten it. So if I'm gonna take the right one, I can see I can shorten it or make it longer. At the bottom, you see there's a frequency response from that's 100, that's 20K. And the time it takes the sound to travel to the microphone, 1 meter is a 1 meter or 3 feet is about 4 milliseconds. So I will be looking here to be about 4 milliseconds. If I'm gonna go closer, 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 you can see what happens. The bottom one's frequency change, like between 100, 150, that thingy. So this is a room mode at 150 hertz, which is very similar in most like average sized rooms. And when you reduce the time, basically that reflection is not in the measurement. You need only the direct sound. And if you see at the higher frequencies, if I let through a lot, you see a lot of like zigzags and everything because there's all the reflections. If I reduce this time and keep reducing it, you can see like this part, and oh, if I let go, the middle part cleans up, but I want this part to be clean as well. So I'm gonna keep reducing it like this, and you can see there we go, something like this. This is now kind of clean. It's not perfect, but it's clean. Here I have 4.7 milliseconds, and you can see here it measures only down to 200 hertz. If I increase it, it goes lower. If I decrease it, it gets higher. So like 4 milliseconds, like this, 250 hertz, 4 milliseconds, it's perfect because this is clean. Now, again, if I increase it a tiny bit, like 7 milliseconds, you see all of these appear, and I don't want these. So what people a lot of times do, what they do is they leave this, whatever, full, and then, where is it? Oh, they change stuff, so it's hard to find. Smoothing. So what they do, they add smoothing. If you add 1/3 smoothing, apply, everything is this. But this smoothing is what it does, it just smooths the response, but it still leaves all the reflections in there. I don't want reflections. I want just the actual response that's coming from the speaker into the microphone and no ceiling, side window, and everything else reflections. So I'm going to remove the smoothing. No smoothing. Apply this. And impulse, again, I decided I'm going to keep it at 4 milliseconds. Something like this. And now I need to make it default. So I'm going to go to preferences. What is it? Analysis. And here in the analysis, you have default, this one, default width. So I'm going to choose 4 milliseconds instead of 200. By default it's 200, now it's 4. So now, if I'm gonna close it, I'm gonna take another measurement. Exactly the same conditions, just with different gating. Let's take another one. Okay, cool. So now, if I'm gonna go back, you can see this one is still with the smoothing. Let me apply. Oh no, because I changed the impulse. So this one, let's leave it as it was. By default, it was what, 200, whatever? Let's leave it there. This one, and this is this. So now you can see how the gating changes stuff. I'm going to zoom in a tiny bit because I don't need any of this. There we go. Perfect. So now you can see the green one is with all the reflections included into the measurement, and the blue one, if I remove this, it's only the actual response that comes from the speaker. Now, it's not perfect because you see like there's a cone breakup, there's a whizzer cone and everything, but again, I'm not aiming for absolute total perfection. You would need to have like a proper, maybe coaxial full range speaker or something, but for my purpose, I think it's gonna be perfectly fine. Another thing that would be interesting to compare is if you add the smoothing after all for that measurement and compare with this, oh, it's not this one, with the smoothing and without the smoothing. This is without, oh yeah, this one, actions, let's add 1/3, apply. Okay, so this is with the smoothing, and this is the actual measurement. And you can see that the smoothing smooths all of these, everything, and it's not correct because it's reflections and you don't want that. So now, step number one, I'm gonna gate the measurement up to 4 milliseconds, and I'm gonna have something like this. Step number two, I need to make sure, actually find out the measurement error. How much can I deviate from this position? I could like put like, what's it called? The bobby thingy that kind of, I could use a laser or something like hanging from the ceiling just to make sure I have the microphone exactly the same place all the time. But what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do multiple sweeps. I'm gonna like do like one sweep like this, one sweep a bit higher, one sweep like a tiny bit in the front, one in the back, like literally 5 millimeters, which is, I don't know how much is in inches, whatever, and maybe move to the side, to one side. I'm gonna make multiple measurements in that little like radius like that and see how much those sweeps differentiate from this one. So give me a second. Okay, so I did multiple sweeps. I have 7 of them. Let's zoom in and see what is the difference. So I'm gonna zoom in even more. Yeah, there is slight difference but it's not much. It's like at the lower frequencies you see like maybe half a dB, half. This is the biggest difference, like after 10K, like these. Which one is it? Doesn't really matter. But yeah, there is slight of a difference, but again, I'm not aiming for perfection, so there is a deviation between the measurements. However, I moved quite a lot. I moved like this much, like up and down. But if I'm gonna keep everything in the same place, I can assume that all the measurements are gonna be identical. So yeah, the thing is, now with the measurements, I could do a quick sweep or I can do a long sweep. So this one is very, very short, 1.4 seconds. If you would increase this, you can have one measurement of 1.5 minutes, but this is useful when you are doing like distortion measurements, when you need very high resolution. I don't need that. The only thing I'm interested in is the actual frequency response. So for me, even a quick sweep is going to be perfectly fine. So yeah, I did this. I made sure that even if I have a few millimeters of placement error, it's not going to affect that much. And at the higher frequencies, these frequencies in the car, what I'm going to be measuring, they're going to be averaged anyway. So I'm not too worried about like literally half a dB or even 1 dB difference between this. It's not a problem at all. So this I'm going to be doing with the high frequencies up to like 200 hertz. The low frequencies, I'm not too worried about them. However, I will double check it, but I'm gonna check it in the car because in the car I have a infinite baffle subwoofer that plays all the way down to 10 hertz, and I'm just gonna double check. So front subwoofer, rear subwoofer, and mid bass, just to double check what's the variances, because I know that from my testings in the car, or up to like 200 hertz or so, all the low end, It doesn't depend on the position that much, so you can vary even like a few centimeters and like an inch or something, and the response is still going to be exactly the same. So for the low frequencies, it's not that big of an issue, but for higher frequencies, yeah, I'm gonna try to keep the mic and exactly the same point. So now the only thing that I need to do is, again, take another reference sweep, make sure that I don't move anything here, and start swapping the microphones with the focus right. Okay, first measurement. So I did the UMIC. Now I swapped for one of the Behringers, which is the XLR into Scarlett. I did play with the gain a tiny little bit. Now let's make exactly the same conditions, exactly the same measurement. Very quick, hop. Yeah, so I decided to take a tiny bit longer measurement, but yeah. So here we see, I did play with the gain just to match, because the gain doesn't matter. I can adjust it with the input gain. And it doesn't matter because the only thing that I need is to have relative gain over all of these measurement microphones. The UMIC one doesn't matter just because I need relative, so plus minus whatever. And here you can see UMIC versus uncalibrated one of the Behringers, this. So here is a slight difference. Same, tiny bit here, and tiny bit at a very high frequencies, maybe like 2 or 3 dB. So it's not that bad if you compare calibrated with uncalibrated. Yeah, so the only difference is it, of course, it's going to be only in high frequencies. So yeah, proof of concept works. I'm going to name this one microphone number 1, because I did numbered all the microphones just to not to lose track. So another 6 measurements, I think. Yeah, just for fun, I'm going to do the Dayton as well, and this one that I'm going to have. So I'm going to do 7 or 8 measurements, and we'll see how they differ from each other. Oh, just one thing that I forgot to mention is that when I'm going to be measuring this one, I just need to make sure. I know REW is not going to do that, but just need to make sure if I go to calibration files that this input that I'm using doesn't have any calibration applied, because if I will have like the UMIX calibration applied here, then the measurement is going to be invalid. So I need to make sure that this is always clear before I take a measurement. I just did the second one, so number 2, just the second one, and just want to show you that if I remove the UMIC, these are 2 Behringers, and the only difference really that you can see is the difference in gain. So this is what I'm talking about, that the gain against the UMIC doesn't matter, because the absolute values, again, for me, for RTA, doesn't matter at all. What matters is the relative gain. So for example, if I'm going to go to actions, measurement actions, and I'm going to take the new measurement number 2, and I'm just going to slightly reduce the gain just to match it. See, the difference is 0.7 dB between these 2 microphones, and they measure almost identical to each other, just a very top end. So that's good to know. And I will be playing with these gains. So for now, I'm going to leave it as 0, and I'm going to take the rest of the measurements. So now what I did exactly the same procedure with the gain for all the microphones. And here you can see I took one as a reference because it was kind of in the middle between all of them. And I have minus 0.7, plus 0.8, minus 0.6, minus 1, minus 0.2. So these are the Behringer microphones, and these are 2 ones that I have spare. One's Nadi, which is this one, CM100, and I have Dayton EMM6 as well. So I just have them just for fun. So the Dayton one is the least sensitive because it needed the most gain added. And these are all the Behringers just compared one against each other. So apart from this one little one, I don't know what that is, all the way up to like 3K, 3.5K, up to like here, they measure identical. And then we have slight differences. So the scale is 2 dB. On 2 dB scale, we have like 2 dB difference here between one another, 2 dB difference here. So like I have probably like 2 dB difference between 5 and 12 kilohertz, like in this area. So this is the area where I will need probably the most correction for the calibration. Now, if I will add the UMIC, which is calibrated, and I'm gonna highlight it, you can see that the UMIC, it matches with the UMIC perfectly. This is like nothing. This is 1 dB difference, 1 dB difference. This is 2 dB difference. So it's not that bad. Like 2 dB difference, when you're gonna average everything anyway, this is a big difference here, but I don't know. So yeah, I know that like up to 3K, even without calibration, these microphones measure spot on, perfectly, no problem at all. The only difference is in the very, very high frequencies. So I will check the low frequencies in the car, but while I'm here, I'm gonna show you how to do the actual calibration file. And to do the actual calibration file, it needs a little bit of fiddling. So again, I do apologize that I'm doing it over the phone and not in the laptop, but it's so much easier to edit when you don't have to jump between like laptop and this one. Okay, so we need to choose two things that we need to calibrate. So I need to, UMIC is my reference. And for this example, I'm going to choosing microphone number 1, the one that I need to calibrate. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go to actions and trace arithmetic. So this basically lets me do some math between the measurements. So you can do like subtraction, division, multiplication, whatever you want to do. And for this specific one, we need to choose A divided by B. And A is going to be the microphone that I want to calibrate, which is in this case going to be the number 1. And 2, B is going to be my reference, which is UMIC. And then if I'm going to divide one by the other, I'm going to generate the measurement. It's going to appear at the very bottom. So now I'm going to close this one. And it's this one. So this, since it's 1 divided by the other, is going to be close to 0. So I need to, if I'm using this window, I'm going to go down to 0 and this. So this is basically tells me how much these measurements, UMIC and one of the Behringers, differ one from each other. So you can see they measure identical from 550 up to 2K, and then it's differences. It measures more, this measures less. I could apply some smoothing, but there's no point of it. And again, for me, what matters is basically this part. The lower frequency is not that much. So now I know how much they differ. Now, how to do the calibration file. What is the calibration file? If I open the calibration file for the UMIC, the factory one, if I'm going to open it, it is a TXT file, simple TXT file, and the only thing that it has frequency and it has gain, plus minus whatever, and it goes from, in this case, from 10 hertz all the way up to 20 kilohertz. So I know that I need a text file with this specific format. Now let me close this, let me close this. I'm gonna select this measurement, the calculated measurement that REW did, which is this line, and I'm gonna go to File, Export, and here you have a few different options, and I'm gonna choose Export Measurement as Text. You can have some formatting to do, and I'm not gonna change anything. I'm gonna leave everything as I do, and this is the preview of the file that's gonna be there. So I'm gonna scroll down. I can see that it gives me frequency, it gives me SPL, which is the offset plus minus, and it gives me phase, but phase doesn't matter. I'm gonna leave it there anyway. So in this case, it starts from 250 because it's here. So I can use from 200, or if I have a full range measurement, I could use a custom from 2020. So I'm this is just for you as just to show you how it is done. I'm gonna be playing with this around because I need to measure the microphones in the car to do the low frequencies and everything, but it's just for you to see how it does. So I'm gonna leave everything as it is. I'm gonna click OK to save it, and I'm gonna name it Behringer 1. So Behringer 1, and I'm just gonna save this file. So now that file is saved on the desktop. Now what I'm gonna do is, this is the number 1 installed. What I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna go to Preferences, clear it. So this is the highlighted input, which is that one. I'm gonna browse and I'm gonna select that file, Bear1, that I saved. So see, this is exactly what I saved. It saved frequency, SPL, and phase. And I'm gonna open. So this is my calibration file that I made from here, and I'm gonna apply it to this microphone. Now I'm gonna close it, and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make a measurement, measure, and with this microphone, with the calibration file that I made applied. Let's make a measurement. Okay, this is my unit measurement. So this is 1 plus calibration. And now, I cannot see through the camera. Okay, so this is 1, this is 1, this is O over B. Let's go up with these measurements. Okay, there we go. So basically, yeah, I think I touched the gain probe because it's next to me. Probably I knocked down the gain because the measurement is lower. Not a problem. I'm gonna increase it. So actions, measurement actions. This one, I'm just gonna increase it. Just like that. Okay, so this is comparison between the old measurement without the calibration file and the new measurement with the calibration file, and you can see they are different. So I'm gonna untick the old one without the calibration file, and I'm gonna compare it to UMIC. Do you see a difference? There is no difference. So yeah, basically now this microphone with that specific calibration file that I made measures identical to UMIC, down to whatever. So the only thing now that I need to do is some clicking. I do UMIC versus number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, do 6, I'm going to do for these as well. So I'm going to do all 7 calibration files, and I just need to name them separate, like Behringer 1, Behringer 2, Behringer 3, and I will have different calibration files for different microphones. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'm going to double check basically with applied individual calibration files if I'm gonna have all the measurements exactly the same. So I did all the math, I did all the files and everything, I loaded them in, and I took new measurements with the calibration file applied. So again, 5 dB scale, this is the UMIC, and let's see how good everything else matches. So data number 1, Behringer number 1, Behringer number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 90 that I have, and the Dayton. So these are all the microphones with the calibration files. And yeah, perfect. So, okay, you're gonna say here, oh, you have here like half a dB difference. Really, does it matter? No, like here as well. Oh, this is something. Yeah, no, with the when you count in the reflections and you have 6 microphones, this absolutely doesn't matter. So this, again, just to remind you, actions, trace arithmetic, you make it here, the calibration file. Save it as text. And again, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is not perfect. This is not lab grade, and it's not supposed to be. This is something DIY that you can do at home. And instead of buying calibrated XLR microphones for $100 or $150, you can buy much cheaper ones and calibrate it yourself just with a single speaker, because these results, to me personally, they are perfectly fine. And again, the only thing that I need to double check is the lower end, just to make sure that the bass is right. But for the bass, you can do exactly the same and just splice. You can either splice the measurement or you can splice the calibration files. But basically exactly the same procedure. So I'm not going to show you how I do the bass, but It's exactly the same. So I hope this helped somebody. If you're planning to buy some microphones, or if you have one very good microphone and you want to calibrate others that you have, you can do exactly the same procedure. And it's not rocket science. It's just some basic math. Save the files and apply the calibration file when you're gonna take the measurements, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, the microphone array videos is the second one. So first one was the overview, the second is calibration. Now if you have calibrated microphones XLR already, you don't need to do this step. You can skip this step, it's not a problem. The gains on each individual microphone, I will need to check it on the interface, because I need to make sure that the channels are, everything is exactly the same. So I will be checking. I did adjust the gains manually now just to match everything, but then I will need to double check the gains when I will connect everything to the actual interface. But as far as calibration of the microphones, this result to me, it's more than acceptable. It's perfectly fine for me. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.